Hello, I'm Catherine Brown Ramsperger, author of the award-winning Shores of Our Souls. You can call me Kathy, and welcome to my Story Hour. I created Story Hour to connect avid readers with brilliant writers, and if you're one of or both, you are in the right place. Today we welcome the prolific musician and author Angelina Kalahari, and I am delighted. Just a bit about Angelina. She was born in Namibia. She now lives in England, and she calls herself a nomad. We're going to talk a little bit about that. She's worked for over 25 years as a professional actress, stage director, and operatic soprano. And I have heard some of that. It's just, she has a beautiful voice, and you're in for a treat at the end. Performing around the world. She has appeared on many diverse platforms, from the London Underground to the Royal Opera House. Her voice and music has been personally recognized by Queen Elizabeth II. Turning her voice toward writing these days, she's now, not that she's given up music by a long shot, she's now an author of several books, including romance, women's fiction, and children's fiction. And they're all about different facets of love. She's also written a nonfiction book on voice. I've read Under a Namibian Sky and the novella that accompanies it, and in that series, but there's so much more. I agree with the reviewer who says the author's like a spider weaving her web and drawing me into something I didn't want to escape. Reminds us of the vital importance to appreciate love and live in the moment. So a shout out to Angelina's newest book, which is book 2 in the Desert Love series, Heat in the Desert, launches this week. One of the first pre-launch reviewers says of it, the way the author describes the character's emotions stood out for me as it made the story come alive. I think empathy is everything in writing, if we can convey that. I could feel everything they felt, this reviewer says. Angelina, thank you for your presence today and welcome. And I would love if you had time to read a bit of an excerpt from your new novel, which launches September 29th, yes?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for having me, Kathy. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, it's so fun. Yes, of course I'll read for you whenever you want me to. Just say, and I will do.
Right now.
Now would be good. Okay. So just a tiny bit of background on this. They've just crash landed in the desert, and I'm not giving anything away because this is the second chapter in the book.
Ooh, crash landing.
Yeah. Next to her, Gerhard sat still, his hands on the plane's yoke. As his body relaxed, he turned toward her. Are you okay? What do you think? You've landed us in the middle of nowhere. How long will we be here? Can you fix the plane? She'd seen television shows and read about people being stranded in the desert and dying of thirst. Would it happen to her? She didn't relish the idea. Gerhard's voice was far too controlled for Syra's liking when he spoke. I'll see what I can do, but we may need some help. Help? Where do you see help around here? Well, it won't be easy, but I'm sure we can summon some. Syra was sure the temperature rising inside her had nothing to do with the heat in the desert. She was getting mad as hell. What was this man playing at? Gerhard opened the door on his side, and scorching air blasted into the already boiling cabin. Syra put a hand on her chest as she struggled to draw the heated air into her lungs. She opened her door, but even more hot air streamed into the cabin. Gerhard placed a firm, dry hand on her forearm. I wouldn't go outside if I were you. You don't seriously expect me to stay in this oven while you go outside? Gerhard removed his hand and nodded. Trust me. It's safer here than out there. What do you mean, safer? Those blue eyes locked on hers, and she understood he wasn't used to being challenged. I mean, It's hotter out there than in here. Out there, you risk sunstroke. Sarah shifted in her seat. The perpetual clamminess of her entirely inappropriate clothing for such weather had produced, it didn't help things. I still think it would be better if I sat in the wing's shade. Gerard got out. He spoke through the open door, his back toward her. Suit yourself. This time, Gerhard didn't help her. As a result, when she jumped down from the plane, she sank into the sand. She tried to muffle the loud yelp that came with the unpleasant surprise, but the difference between the surfaces underfoot almost made her lose balance, and the heat from the sand penetrated her shoes at once. She wouldn't give Gerard the satisfaction of seeing her distress. Sarah pulled herself together, reached back, grabbed her water from the cabin, and rooted through her bag for her jacket to sit on. Even though the wing of the plane had given the illusion of shade, the sand underneath was scorching. Sarah had forgotten they'd only just landed here. The sun had been baking the sand into what felt to her like grains of fire beneath her. She jumped up as the heat penetrated through her jacket and burned her backside. Though Gerard was apparently ignoring her, she was sure she'd seen him smirk when she jumped down from the plane into the blistering sand, and again when she'd leapt up as the heat had penetrated her behind. Meanwhile, Gerhard had opened the bonnet on the side of the plane. He was tinkering away, a frown deepening between his eyebrows. Sarah watched him and didn't care for the frown. She walked closer to him. Well? Well, what? Can you fix it or not? I'm not a mechanic. Sarah had to walk away before she lost her temper. She placed her hands on her hips. Staring off into the distance might help her get a grip on her emotions, but it didn't help. Oh God, they were going to die here. She knew it. When she had her breathing a little more under control again, she turned to face Gerard. But if you're not a mechanic, how the hell are you going to fix this thing? Sarah could have sworn she heard Gerard mumble, "Give me strength," or something like it. Not only was she stranded in the desert, but she had to deal with a jerk like him. Being hunky didn't make up for it. Life could be so unfair. Damn, she should never have come. What a stupid idea. Bloody Max. He'll have a lot to answer for when she gets back to London. Unable to contain her curiosity, she peeped around the plane. Gerhard was fumbling inside the cabin and ignoring her. When she saw him unpacking a bundle of wood from underneath his seat and reaching for a lighter in his pocket, she couldn't believe it. Was he going to make a fire in this heat? She walked closer. Fire? I thought we only needed at night to prevent predators from eating us alive. I'm not building a fire for the wildlife. The man was impossible. Sarah felt the urge to stamp her foot, but wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing he'd gotten under her skin. Why couldn't he be civil? Men with manners were in such short supply these days. Sarah watched in fascination as Gerhard built a fire. He collected some straw-like plant matter she hadn't noticed before, because the way it blended in with the color of the surrounding sand was perfect. He placed it over the pieces of wood like kindling, started the fire, and blew on it until it took. Oh God, he was a real Neanderthal. But when he took off his shirt, Sarah almost gasped at the sight of his beautiful torso and had to cough to hide her faux pas. Gerhard's body wasn't only beautiful, toned with perfect muscles, but he looked far more like a model than a Neanderthal. That's 5 minutes.
That was so wonderful. Thank you for that glimpse into the story.
Welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, you have such a way with detail, the sand under her feet, and you also have a way of bringing the reader in terms of empathy, and which is not always the case with a romance novel. And in addition, you have a beautiful way with words, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
So You're certainly prolific and you're a wonderful writer. I know you've been writing for quite a long time. I'm wondering why you decided to segue a bit from music to publishing. I won't say writing because I think you've been doing that all along.
I have, yes, I have. I've always written, ever since I was a young kid. But the thing is, you know, when you're singing and you're traveling a lot for singing, it's very lonely. It's actually far more lonely than people realize. They see the glamour at the end of it. They see, you know, coming out in fabulous costumes, singing fabulous things and operas and stuff. But it is a very lonely existence. And there's only so many books you can read. And so I started writing.
Read a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, you can. But the thing is, you know, I don't know if you're the same as me with reading. If I read, I either get so absorbed in the book that I don't sleep. So, you know, it's just, I'm just going to read the next chapter. But the thing is, I've got to sing tomorrow night, you know, so I kind of have to sleep. So reading didn't work for me so well. So I started writing, and I wrote loads and loads of books and plays and all kinds of things. But I never published any of them. They were just for me, to amuse myself and to keep myself occupied. And also, as a writer, I know that you will understand this. Characters talk to you. They talk to you in their head. It's like they want to live in the world. They drive you nuts until you give them life. And so, and the more you write, the more that happens. And so not when I started writing, because I've always been writing, but characters have always kind of been shouting, you know, going, I want to live, I want to live. So I've always had all these, you know, books and things, stories.
To come out of your head and into the world is sort of the way it is, right?
It is. It absolutely is like that. So that's how it started, really. And then, sadly, a few years ago, I had a massive health problem. And when I recovered, because I had to go to a hospital and whatever. But when I recovered, the consultants told me that I would never be able to sing opera again. And I didn't believe them.
Good.
I didn't believe them, but I very soon found out they were right. So although I still sing, I don't sing opera anymore. I can sing bits and pieces here and there.
There's a huge difference between, say, Broadway and opera. I've done that in a very, very amateurish way. And there's a huge difference. Massive difference.
Yeah, so, I mean, and also the voices are trained completely differently in a way. I mean, all the exercises, the sort of basic exercises are the same. But when you train your voice to sing on Broadway or the West End here in London, you train in a slightly different way than you do when you train to sing opera. I can do it this way. People who don't understand singing, perhaps in the way that we're talking about, it's like watching classical ballet and watching hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
That big difference.
Absolutely.
It's completely different. So, yeah. So, but I mean, I was lucky because I also have degrees in teaching singing and music. So when all this happened, and I was distraught, of course, because
it's a huge loss.
As well, I really mourned my voice, you know. I mourned my voice, and I did go through a sort of dark night of the soul bit then, because what do you do if this is what you love? This is what you were born to do. This is what you've done all your life. It's very difficult to move on from that. But I started teaching people, and I was working in the West End, and I had the opportunity to create my own show for the West End. Not the big West End. We did it in the Tristan Bates Theatre, which is
like our off Broadway.
It's not quite off Broadway, not quite off. It's sort of in between. It's where, I mean, major stars perform there, but it's experimental. Let's put it that way. It's experimental.
Okay, I understand now, and I think the rest of the audience will as well.
Yes, so it's it's more experimental. So we did stuff there, and it went down a treat. I mean, people were blown away by it, and I was so happy. And I cast the most wonderful people in the show. They were all fantastic. They were singers, they were actors, they were beautiful, beautiful performers. And one of them became a really, really close friend, the closest friend I've ever had, and died tragically very shortly after. We'd worked on other shows as well, him and I, and then he died. And it derailed me, that and my voice sort of happened very soon after each other, and it kind of derailed me completely. I was like, what? You know, what? I couldn't understand what was going on. And because he was such a kind of star in a way, so many people knew that we'd worked on shows together, and that I was one of the last people. In fact, I think I was the last person to see him alive. People kept calling me and asking me what happened, like his agents and everybody he'd worked with, you know. And I was so distraught that I couldn't continue talking all the time. I couldn't continue saying the same story over and over and over again. It was like, it was really getting to me. So I wrote it down, and some people read it and they went, oh my God, this is good. You should do something with this. You should publish this. And I was like, but it's really sad. And they went, well, add something, make it into a novel. And so I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? He would love that. He would get such a kick out of the fact that he's the subject of a novel. And people, yes, he would. And people would get to know him in a way that perhaps they hadn't realized who he really was. And so I did that. So I wrote a novel called The Healing Touch. And it's partly his story, which is the real story. And then I added a sort of fictional story to it, to make it not so sad. But what happened was, once I published the book, so many people read it, and all my details are in the backs of my books. And they contacted me, women contacted me and started asking me if I could meet them for coffee. And they wanted to talk to me about their lives that was reflected in the fictional story that I'd written. I was blown away.
That happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? And so I met all these amazing women, and I went out and had one-on-one conversations with them and realized that, oh, it really, really resonates. This fictional story really resonates with people, and it made me feel really good, you know. And of course they loved his character, which obviously is not his real name, and you know, but they loved his character. So in the book, his character is called James, and it is based on the truth of what happened to him. So it was a pleasure to write that, you know.
Well, what a beautiful transition. And I'm so glad the beautiful caterpillar, went through that cocooning time and came out a butterfly of a different color, maybe.
Yes, you know, that's a really good analogy, actually. Because that's what it feels.
And I love that everything that you do is about your voice.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And it was amazing to find out I had a voice to write with, a different voice. And what is very interesting is the little piece I just read you is from, as you said, it's from Heat in the Desert, which will be launching next week. It's on pre-order right now. But that series is a slightly different series. It's literally more contemporary romance, but slightly different than the kind of contemporary romance that's out there at the moment. It goes slightly deeper, I feel, and it's slightly different from Heat in the Desert, which is at the moment is the only book out, although I'm writing the next one right now, and it's in a series called Love Beyond Reason. That is more of a women's fiction series. It's more serious. It goes far deeper into love and understanding love and finding out the many different levels of love and how complicated it can be, how complex and how messy it can be, and how we get ourselves into situations where we think, how did I get here from there? And how do I get out? you know. And I think that's probably why people can relate to it so well, and why it resonates, because we all have at some stage in our lives found ourselves in a situation where we fall in love with someone that maybe is completely wildly inappropriate for us, you know, or
Quite a few myself.
right. Yeah, yeah. So they're very different, but all of my books, you are absolutely right, explores love. I want to find out the mystery of love. And so that's how we met. I have a little
I
podcast
was
of my
going to
own.
say, we
Yes,
both love writing about love.
yes, yes. And it was such a pleasure to interview you on my podcast talking about love.
Thank you.
It was such a deep interview, you know, really exploring the mystery of love, and how powerful it is. I personally feel it's the most powerful emotion in the world. And it can be very good and it can be very bad.
Well, before we talk about the light and the shadow parts of love, I want to ask Kaylee to tell us if we have any questions, and then we'll have our wonderful discussion about love.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. When you were reading your excerpt, we have a comment from Lucille Dorothy, and she says, "These two will get together, just the romantic in me." So that's what she's suspecting of the two that you read about. And then we do have a question from Noelle Puglisi, and she asks, what was the strongest motivator for you to have your story published? And she asked that question when you were talking about your dear friend.
Right. Well, it was because so many people had been asking me about him. You know, what happened? What happened at the end? And it's a very weird thing that happened at the end. It's like a mystery all in its own. Some people thought he'd committed suicide. Some people wasn't sure. I mean, it's almost a supernatural type thing going on. And because I was so grief-stricken, it was really difficult for me to continually repeat the same story. And so I thought the best way to just let everybody understand what happened is to write it. That's basically what happened. But I would have just left it like that. It was because people started reading it. And remember, we're all performers. So there's a different element here. You know, people relate in a different way to the way that we work. I suspect performers are more sort of like out there and emotional and dramatic, and you know, and so when they read that, so many of them said to me, "Oh my God, it's fabulous, darling! You've got to do something with it." And I thought, okay, I'll publish it, because once it's out there, then anybody can read it if they want to. But I didn't want to go through a traditional publisher because the story is so weird and so out there. I didn't think they would possibly like it or approve. But more than that,
it can get categorized, and then it's not all it can be too.
Right. That's what I was worried about. But the major factor is two things. There was a time I wanted it out quickly, and I know traditional publishers usually take a longer time to get everything done, which is fine, fair enough. I mean, it was done properly. It's you know, edited properly. It's got a professional cover and everything, but I could get it out quicker as an indie author. And also, I'm a complete control freak, darling, when it comes to my work. I can't give my things to somebody else to have a cover. You know what I mean? Like, no. But I was lucky because I worked with an award-winning cover designer. She's fantastic, and she's done most of my covers, and they are fantastic.
They are.
I love them, yeah. So I was very lucky to find her, and fantastic editors I worked with. So I'm lucky that way, because I think a lot of these people are now freelance, where they used to work only with traditional publishers. They're now freelance. So indie authors like me have access to them, which is fabulous. So that's how it happened. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. I think that was a very powerful answer. And so that's all we have for now. So let's hop into the discussion about love.
Okay. All right. That's what we love most. So Angelina, you've touched on why you decided to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think people, readers, but people in general, are drawn to stories of star-crossed lovers? And why do you think they get swept up in romance novels that have happily ever after endings? And you might even want to add another kind of your own touch to those questions.
Those are very good questions, Kathy, I have to say. And this is the reason I started doing my podcast, interviewing authors, primarily romance authors, but authors who write about love, mm-hmm. because I want to find out these answers to these questions. My own feeling is this. I think, like I said, love is the most powerful emotion there is. It really is. It drives everything. It's in everything. It's not just between lovers. It's between parents and children and pets, friends, you know. It's everywhere, and it really, really drives. You think about it. I'll put it this way. I was watching a television program really late one night about a Russian guy who's extremely wealthy. I mean, it's ridiculous how wealthy he is. He lives in like a marble palace somewhere in the middle of nowhere near Moscow. And he had divorced from his wife, and she and his little son left. And the interviewer walked around this incredibly beautiful, I mean, stunning home. Everybody, I'm sure, who looked at it would be like, oh my Lord, this is amazing. And this man was so sad. He was almost in tears, and he said, I miss my wife, I miss my child. Yes, I have all of this, but it means nothing without them. And that, I think, is the truth of it. So when people are obsessed with romance, I think it is to get back that feeling, that feeling of, oh my gosh, this is worth something. I'm worth something. And I'm the most important person in this other person's life. I think we all want that. We all want to be loved for who we really are, although it's extremely scary. And so it's safer to read about it and to live it through characters than to try and do it ourselves, because it is terrifying when you fall in love. It's such a vulnerable thing to do, and you basically give your heart to somebody in your hands, and they can hurt it. They can hurt it, and sometimes that happens. And so I think
often it happens.
Yes, very
it
often.
does, but
yeah, and it can destroy.
Strong motivator in terms of that too. I don't mean codependency or anything like that, but it's a feeling like no other, and so it motivates us and makes us passionate about our lives.
Absolutely. And you know, that night when I was watching that documentary and I saw that man's eyes, I thought, that's what it was like. I got the answer, you know. I thought, okay, so it doesn't matter how ambitious you are. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter how successful you are in your work, whether it's creative or any other thing. It doesn't matter. What matters is, can you share it? Can you be honest and share yourself with someone in a way that is meaningful, that delights you, that makes your life have meaning, like you just said, that makes it meaningful, you know? And so I think that is why people are so drawn to romance, because like you said, they want to relive that feeling. It's such a strong, powerful feeling, and it lifts you, it engages you, it lifts you, it inspires you, it makes you full of energy, and it feels like, you know, the world is your oyster when you're in love. It gives you that oomph that you don't necessarily always have. And I suspect, you know, especially when people have been say, for example, married for a long time, doesn't mean they don't love each other, but that sort of like sparkly fabulousness sometimes disappear. And they can get it back through reading about it again and again and again. You can relive that, can't you?
You can.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful explanation. I love it. I'm going to play it over and over and over. It gives me inspiration for my own work. Thank you. So this is along the same lines. You may have already answered it, and we could talk forever about this, but you say most stories that touch our hearts and souls contain a love story. Is that for the same reasons, or do you want to riff on it a little bit more? Do you think that's why most books contain a love story of some sort, even if it's say you're watching a movie and it's 10 minutes of the movie, but it's there?
Yeah, I think it is true. I think it is that thing that we all crave. We all crave it. We all want that, to belong to one person. We want to be the most important person in someone's life, and just us, nobody else, just us. I think that's innate in all of us. Do you know, I mean, if you look at a baby, for example, they have no qualms about saying, love me, please love me, I'm fabulous, love me. And I think that remains within us, even though we put layers and layers and layers and layers and things on top of us. But I think in stories, it's really important that that is part of the story, because I know there are sort of adventure stories out there, and you often see movies that's like, you know, adventure movies, and off they go and everything. But you will always find that there's a little bit of a love story in there, because I think people crave it. They crave that. And it gives validation to the idea that we're not crazy, that by wanting love, we're not crazy. Everybody wants it. That's what I think anyway.
Love conquers all is what I always say. So you also, it's interesting you're talking about the mother-child bond, because there is a mother-child plot twist, and please don't give it away, in Under a Namibian Sky. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the parent-child love. How do you think it mirrors love in a different way than a partnership between adults? Are you following me?
I do. I absolutely get where you're coming from. And yes, I agree with you. I think it has a different flavor, but equally as important. So can I talk about something completely crazy here?
Absolutely. That's what this show's about.
Okay. So when my friend died, because I was so completely traumatized by it, I went for a therapy called Life Between Lives.
Oh.
I did. And what is very interesting is that you then, I won't tell everybody, unless people want to do this. I mean, it's a 6-hour therapy, and you come out of there thinking, oh, because you discover who you were before you came here. You also discover that everything you've asked for in this life, you decided before you came. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. And
I believe that myself, but I don't always like it.
No. And I sometimes have this conversation with myself, like, what were you thinking when you decided to have this happen? I mean, what were you thinking? But anyway, so my point is this. At that time, you also introduced to your soul circle, the inner circle of people who belong to your soul group, if you know what I mean. I mean, we're all connected. Every single person on this planet, we're all connected to each other. And that's why love is so important. But I think the love between parents and children, the mother and the daughter or son, or the parents, I think it's very special, because these people, we chose each other. We made an agreement before we came here that there will be lessons learned, not in the way that, oh, you're going to learn a lesson now, not like that at all. It's about growing your soul, expanding who you are so that all of us can expand at the same time. And I feel that the love between a mother and a daughter, which is what I wrote about in Under a Namibian Sky, is extremely important, because people think, oh, well, the mother should be the teacher and the child, the student. It's not necessarily the case.
Oh, I know that for sure.
You know, yeah. Often it's the other way around. Often it's the child is the teacher and the mother is the student. And these are relationships and roles we chose. We chose them, as I said, to expand our souls. Now, at the time when my friend died and I did all this therapy, I also came across twin flame souls, which I didn't know existed. I had no idea what that was. And I did a lot of research. I read more than 50 books. I spoke to a lot of people and I did a lot of therapy and everything. And it was very interesting to me, because people think twin flame souls mean a love connection between a man and a woman. They think it's a romantic love connection, but it isn't always. It isn't always. And I discovered that my friend who died, who was gay and much younger than me, was my soul flame.
Right, that makes perfect sense, and it makes sense of why you felt such deep grief.
Right, because I had lost other people who were important to me, but nobody who had died had derailed me like that. And it was very important to understand it. And what I learned is that often when you meet your soul flame, or your flame, the other half of your soul, one of you has to leave, because the intensity of the relationship is so strong, it can't be sustained for very long. And it usually happens if someone has to stay to do something that you both wanted to do. There's work involved, not necessarily work as in doing work, but work as in working on yourself, expanding your soul and helping other people to do the same thing. And so the mother and daughter relationship is often that twin soul thing, that twin flame thing.
It's beautiful.
Often.
It's my belief that the more conflict we have with somebody we love deeply, or the more passionate conflict, I might say, yeah, the more we learn, and the more we learn to love. And there's nowhere else than a love affair gone wrong, or a gay and a straight relationship. I had one of those too.
Yeah.
Or a mother-child. I love it, and we could talk about this forever, but I'm going to have to go on with another show, Angelina.
Another show. But I just want to add something. Can I just add something?
Absolutely.
Because I want to add something to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to experience it. People can talk about it. We can read about it. We can write about it. But you have to experience it to learn it.
Mm.
You know?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. It's absolutely true. The more stubborn you are, like me, the more you have to experience. So
it's a bummer.
So you don't think there is the one? There are multiple people that we connect with, but there probably is the one, but it's not the one we think is the one. Am I getting that right?
I think you're right. I really think you're right. I mean, I think we have many different, because here's the thing. We expand. You know this. You're not the same today as you were 15 years ago.
Right.
So who was perfect for you 15 years ago may not be the one today. And it took a while for me to understand that, because obviously I married someone that I thought was going to be my life partner, and hopefully will be still, but we change. We do move in different ways. We grow in other ways, and so we change. It's not always so. that, I think that has a lot to do with why there's a huge divorce rate. I think it has something to do with that. I mean, I think people give up too quickly when there's a problem. That I do think too. But I think it has to do with, if you've been with someone for a long time, you outgrow each other. You grow into other people, and you need someone else then to fulfill that part. And so therefore, that's why I think it's true what I saw when I did that therapy. We have a soul group that we've made agreements with. And so if you have been with someone and you divorce and you go on, you've made agreements, both of you. You've made a soul contract that this is what's going to happen. I seriously believe that. I know some people probably think I'm talking absolutely.
No, well, not me. I totally agree.
But
I think you either change together or you change apart.
Right. Yes.
And I can't say this for certain, but most people I know have had a point in their marriage that they knew, if I'm either going to stay or I'm going to go.
Right.
And it's always a choice. But today we don't, the choice, that we do have a choice.
Yes.
So,
yes, today we have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't always like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to make certain I have time for your gorgeous voice. So I'd like to touch on a little bit on travel.
Okay.
Can you talk to me and the audience about places you've lived, places you've traveled to, and how has that transferred to your fiction or your worldview for that matter?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a great question. You ask amazing questions.
You do too.
I love traveling. I've always traveled because I was always working. I started singing professionally when I was 7. So I've always been traveling and working, and I was lucky to be able to do that. But you are right. There are a few places in the world that touch your heart and change who you are, and like just connect with your soul, you know. And so in Africa, obviously, I was born in Namibia, and Namibia is one of those countries. And that is why it's so fantastic for me to write a series set in Namibia, because Namibia is an unchanging world. How it was when I was a child, it's still like that today.
I mean, love that about Africa.
It's wonderful. It's unchanging, you know. I mean, yes, they've got technology and whatever, like we all do. But the actual place is unchanging, and it's vast. And you can literally just go and find yourself in the desert. It's an amazing place. It's quiet. You can hear the silence in the desert. It's incredible. And at night, because there's no light pollution, you see the Milky Way. I mean, I know there are places in America. I've seen pictures. I haven't been to those places in America, but I've seen pictures where you can see the Milky Way, and the moon is huge. It's so big. It looks like it's this huge ball. I don't know why it's that big in the desert, but it seems always to be. So Namibia is always close to my heart. I haven't lived there for a very long time, but whenever I go back, which is not very often, unfortunately, I absolutely love it, and it feels like I go home. My family, most of them now live in Cape Town, so I do go there, and Cape Town is a beautiful city. It's lovely and highly recommended for people to visit. But if you want to visit Africa, go to Namibia. You will not regret it. It's an amazing place. And there's all kinds of sorts of things that you can do. There's lodges sort of in the middle of the desert, you know, and it's fantastic. But it's wonderful, yeah. So, and then London. I mean, I love London. And so my children's book is set here, my middle grade book, George and the Gargoyle, who lived in the garden. Excuse me. And also The Healing Touch is set here in London. London is an amazing place. And I found a wonderful tribe of amazing people that I belong to here, I feel. And they're colourful and dramatic and full of life and, you know, positivity. And so it is wonderful. And I think London is such an incredible city. I remember when I first came here, I'd walk along the road and go, oh, Dickens walked here, you know. No coward was here, you know, that, yeah, it was like that. So
I feel
I
like
love
that about Paris. I feel like that about London too, but I'm more of a Paris girl.
Oh, yeah. Well, Paris is beautiful.
It is. I used to drag my husband to every bar and nook and cranny that any author ever visited in the 20s. So.
You have to. You have to. How can you go to Paris and not do that, right? You have to. I love Paris, but it doesn't have the same feel for me as London.
I think that you should feel home. And
yes.
there would be one or two or three, but I get it.
Yeah, it feels like home. And then, of course, Italy. I sang a lot in Italy. Italy is my second home. If I ever move anywhere, it would be Italy. I love Italy with a passion. Venice is my favorite city in Italy and makes an appearance in some of these books. Yes, and Medina and Bologna. I remember walking in Bologna and hearing people singing and practicing music and, you know, from the windows, and it's just, it takes your breath away. I love Italy with a passion. I love everything about it. I love the food, I love the weather, I love the people, I love the buildings, I love the culture. I love everything about Italy. It's wonderful. And because I sang a lot in Italian, I can't speak it. I do, you know, opera Italian, but it's such a brilliant language. It feels like something you can eat. Stunning. So I love it. And then I lived in Hong Kong, where I met my husband. And I lived in Hong Kong for 8 years, and I traveled all over the Orient, and it was stunning and fabulous. I don't know if we've got time, because I can talk, you know, darling.
Well, that was more my personal question, because I don't know that I could write a book about a place I hadn't been in for at least a short time.
Yeah.
Now, there was the time I could do it.
Yeah.
But now there are places that just speak to my soul, or they've lodged in my soul, and I want to write about them. So that was a wonderful explanation. I wish we had time to go to talk more.
Yeah, because there's loads. Those are just a few.
So I wonder if you have any self-publishing advice, just a little tiny tidbit. If you had one thing you could tell people that want to publish a book and they're a little intimidated by self-publishing.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. I honestly can tell you that there's a lot to do, but the most important thing is the product. Don't think about any publishing until you have written a beautiful book that is stunning, that the story sings, that you know will resonate with your audience. If you don't know what it is, go on Amazon, look at the top 10 best-selling books in any genre, and then look at and buy them, read them. If you are a Kindle Unlimited person, read them on Kindle Unlimited, but read the books and find out the tropes and what makes them sing. What is it that makes them a bestseller? And then write that. If you still don't know what to do, Mark Dawson sells.
I was wondering if we would shout out to Mark.
He sells an amazing program. It's called Writing a Bestseller, and I highly recommend it. It tells you not how to write the bestseller, but how to prepare for it, how to have in your head, for example, your blurb, your audience, what your cover would look like, kind of. Put together a storyboard of pictures of what your cover, things that inspire you, you know. But the most important thing is get the product right, because you can publish things, anybody does, and unfortunately for a long time, I think it's kind of not so much now, but for a long time people used to publish anything, just publish it, and it was unedited. The book covers were horrible, they would, you know, and it made it so that there was a stigma attached to it. So when people said to you, oh, you're self-published, it meant, oh, you're not good enough to be published properly through a traditional publisher, but that is no longer the case. It really isn't. If you haven't written a book yet and you really want to, the best advice I can give you is read, 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 read as much as you can, and research the market to find out what the kind of book is that you can write, that you can put your own voice on.
Thank you. You have done a brilliant job of combining knowing your audience and beautiful writing. And you're not going to sell your book unless you do both things beautifully. Yeah. And you do. I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you, your website, any place your books are available, and you have amazing things on YouTube and a blog. And so where's the best place to find Angelina Kalahari and her work?
No, thank you very much. Yes, I'm everywhere. I really literally am.
You are. Not to be these days, right? But you really are.
I really am everywhere. But my website is probably a good place to start. So it's Angelina Kalahari, like the desert, Kalahari .com. That's it. That's where you can find me. But I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and of course my YouTube channel, which is Angelina Kalahari. That's where you'll find me. And I read, not only do I do the podcasts where I interview fantastic authors like Kathy, and I was so proud and fabulously excited that she came on mine, but I also read my short stories on there. I read, I've read Under a Namibian Sky for free. You can listen to it, every chapter. And the reason I did that is, this is crazy, I'll tell you very quickly why I did it, is because I am an insomniac, and I wanted to have a voice that will put me to sleep. Now, it sounds terrible that I use my own voice to put me to sleep, but it's very soothing. My voice is quite...
Reading is soothing. Listening to music or a book is soothing. Yes.
Well, here's the thing. If you listen to a book, because of course Audible is fantastic for that, but I tend to fall asleep and then I wake up in the middle of the night and someone's still reading to me, and then I can't sleep again. But if you listen to a video, at some point the video stops, so you sleep all night. And so I tried really hard to find, so I found a few people whose voice put me to sleep, including my own. And there are bedtime stories for adults, but some of those voices I can't, because I'm a musician, I'm also a synesthete, and this is normal for a lot of musicians. So I see sound as color and shape, and if it's too harsh, I can't sleep. I actually can't. So I put myself to sleep. So
that's amazing. I'm so glad we got that little tidbit. That's amazing. I want to talk to you personally about that. So I am so hoping that everybody's waited for this beautiful song. It's called Earth Song. I want to go to Kaylee for 2 minutes and see if there are any remaining questions.
Yes, we actually have 2 questions. So we have one from Tatiana Ramzoff. She first commented that her daughter said to her when she was 7 years old that life is a struggle, and she chose her as her mother. So she really resonated with that comment, I think. Yeah. She also read online that the Queen honored you for your beautiful voice and music. And so she asks, can you share how you felt and what the Queen said to you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, there is a little tiny short video on my website, on my welcome page on my website, where the Queen talks to me, and you can hear her talking to me, and I'm telling her that I was invited, I think, because I was busking on the underground, because it was such a weird thing to do. And she was very amused by that. But she did spend quite a bit of time talking to me, and we talked about where I'd sung before, and actually she'd seen me. I didn't know this, but she had seen me before, which was fantastic. I just assumed I was invited because I was busking, not for any other reason, because every time I was invited to open the busking scheme together with Julian Lloyd-Webber. And so we opened the legal busking scheme on the Underground here in London, because at that time, the London mayor decided that all visitors to London see musicians on the Underground first. Yeah.
First.
That's why. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And then we just have one more question from Noelle Puglisi. And she says, what do you hope your readers will take away from your books?
I hope they will be inspired by the love stories. I hope that they will feel the feelings of the people that I write about, and that it will inspire them to look at their own lives and what love means for them, how they love and what that means for them, and how important love is. That's what I'd like most, I think.
Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you so much for being here, Angelina. And I am so excited to share my tea bag wisdom.
Oh,
I show it, but nobody can read it. But it's to show everyone that it's real.
Okay, I can't see it.
Yogi tea, I'm going to read it. Know that whatever you are doing is the most beautiful thing. Isn't that so gorgeous? Just for you. Yogi Tea's gift to Angelina and the world, which you are a gift to the world.
So it takes one to know one.
Mutual fan club. I just adore every time we meet. I can't wait to someday meet you in person. And until that point, much love. And much love out there, everyone. Share your love. And thank you so much for being with us, Angelina.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to close with this gorgeous song sung by Angelina, and it's called Earth Song.
Thank you.
Take me a moment.
Forse siamo insieme solo pochi istanti. Sì.